Yo guys, what's up? Nave here, also known as Redex, and today I'm going to show you how to make this dark DnB beat. Right, so one of the first things I like to do when starting off a new tune is work from the ground up with my drums. I like to make a fresh kit every single time, so I keep myself doing different various production exercises, and as well it forces me to go out and sample hunt. Sample hunting is very important, so rather than you sit there with like 3-4 different snares, having to EQ them weird, compress them, balance them right, if you find a good snare that you like off the bat, or a good kick, or a good hi-hat, it will put you in good stead for the rest of the tune. Maybe if you want to layer up and add some kind of different bits to the sound, you can use maybe 2, 3 if you really want to, but in this case, for this project, we've just got one nice kick, one nice snare, and then a few different hats. So let's get into the kick. This is the kick that we've got. Nice big kick, got a lot of weight to it and a lot of punch. Perfect for this kind of dark DnB that we're making today. So one of the first things I like to do is open up the channel EQ in Logic. You can use any bass EQ you like, or even a third-party EQ, but I just find it easier to use this one. And I like to do a bit of subtraction between like the 450 to 500 hertz area. And basically, when you have like some other basses and other things coming later, some other elements that will take up this kind of space, you don't really want it clashing too much with the kick. So I like to pull it down here. Some kicks, it's better to do this with. Some kicks, it's not. You just have a look and see which ones it is each time. So as well, if you look here around the 7.5 K mark, what we've done is just given a little bit of a boost, and that just gives you like some high-end presence, a little bit of a punch that will come through in the mix. Next up, which is what I put on basically all of my drum hits, is a transient shaper. I'm using kilohertz one now. Really simple, just 3 knobs, attack, pump, and sustain. That's all you need. So I've got the attack up, so we get a lot more of the initial knock, and sustain so that it's proper tight, proper snappy, just what we need. So it sounds like this with both of those on. Much better, much bigger. Awesome. So now we've got the kick sounding big, nice, just how we want it. We can now bring the snare into the mix. So this is the snare we've got for this project. Nice tight, snappy snare, very common for these kind of DnB tunes that we're making. So this snare consists of 3 tracks. The first being a ghost snare that's there to help give us some of that roll and shuffle we all love, but that will come into play later. The second is my layered snare that helps give the main snare some more body and weight. That's why I was saying in sample hunting that it's very important to find the ones you like the most, ones that you won't really need to mess with too much in terms of EQ or anything wild like that. But if you find they are lacking something, you can get in another sound and use it for that purpose. So this is the main snare. And then this is the body snare. And then together they sound like this. It's very subtle, but it really does help give the main snare a little bit of that extra just weight and punch in the mix. So what I've done with all of these is I've grouped them in a summing stack in Logic, which allows me to affect all of them together as a group rather than individually track by track by track. So going on to the snare, what I've got on here is a channel EQ just off of the bat. And what I like to do is get rid of all the lower frequencies that could clash with anything from our kick or our sub, or maybe some other basses as well. Even though you may not hear them and they may not seem present to you, just always better to just get that cut and just roll on until you find the sweet spot where your snare has none of those frequencies, but you're not getting rid of any of the main weight punch from your snare. So if I pulled it up too much, there you go. You find that nice little sweet spot. Always good rule of thumb to go through when you're doing your snares. And then next I've got a transient shaper. So same thing as the kick, just attack, pump, and sustain. The pump just helps emphasize the attack. So I've got the attack up, so we get that nice, snappy, knocky sound from the snare as well. And the sustain is just a bit down, so it keeps it nice and tight. Then next, I've just got a little bit of a reverb on ascend. I just like to use Valhalla Room. I have a percussive setting already that I mainly go to, so I just dial that in with the snare each time so that the snare reverb isn't too overbearing, and it just helps fill out some of the space when you've got the whole loop going. So now we're on to the most important part. This is going to wrap our drums up in a nice rolling package. These are the tops. Let's have a listen. In these kind of tunes, I like to have hats that are quite aggressive, loud, and harsh, that will just really stand out and help give the drums some more presence and oomph in the mix when you start bringing other things in, like your basses and your synths. So let's break these down once again in a summing stack of 5 tracks. And the first thing we've got is the main hat. Very just percussive and stabby sound, but also very just aggressive and bright. We've also got these hats layered in on the 8th notes, and what these will do is help us get some of that nice just rolling funk and rhythm. So let's listen to that with the 2 main hats. Right, so that may not sound like anything impressive, but if we compare it with the kick and snare, without them it'll sound like this. You know, nothing wrong with that, normal DnB beat, but add them in and you start getting some of that funk. It's just ever so subtle, but it really does just help it. Next, I've got a top loop from one of my tunes called Bottled. As you can see here, I've already made it, already bounced it out. Normally I would just make 16th notes with the hi-hats again, but I really like this loop, so I thought I may as well fit it in and try it. You never know what may come in handy. So with this in, it's just really nice there, just in the background, nice and quietly, just really helps that rhythm keep going. Next, I've got an Amen that I've got from the 101 Amen break pack by Daps at Compound Audio that is free, so be sure to go check that out. Loads of Amen breaks in there, really cool for adding some personality and flavor to your drums. So this is layered in there like this. It's just really cool to have there in the background, helps give your drums a little bit more of that flavor, a little bit more of that spice, a little bit of something interesting for the viewer and the listener as well. So let's have a look into what I've put onto these. So first thing, same, is just channel EQ and just a standard hi-hat EQ. You know, just boosted it around 5.9 and then just a little bit more towards 10, because anywhere around from 10 to like 13 will just help give you some of that brightness, and then this will just give you some of the presence really for when you want the hats to stand out. That's about it. Next is a transient shaper. Same as I put on the kick and the snare, but I wanted the hits to be really hard and harsh with these hats. So I've got the attack up and I've got the sustain down, so they're nice and tight. None of this just lingering on going into the next bar. Sometimes you might realize that something sounds a little bit off, so if you bring down the sustain, have a listen, it might just be what fixes it. Next as well, got the send, the same reverb as the snare, which is just my percussive setting, and then you just dial that in with how you want it. And then the most important thing is the side chaining from the compressor. So using FabFilter Pro C2, which is what I really like, in Logic, you can just click here and you assign it to the snare, and then you go down here where it says sidechain, and then you click external. So what this basically does is whenever the snare goes to hit, there's going to be a dip in the volume of the hats. So that way the snare has more of its own space in the mix and really helps it stand out, because sometimes if you don't do this, you can find that the tops will just be burying the snare because the high frequencies from both will be clashing and just messing about. So it's a really good rule of thumb to always do. Don't forget that. And then together, with all of this stuff on it, our drum loop should be sounding like this. So, that concludes today's episode, How to Dark DnB, with myself, Nave, also known as Redex. Today, I've shown you how to get them drums sounding nice and big and tight and rolling. Next episode, I'm going to show you how to make a big bass hit and some tasty dark wobs, so stay tuned. If you want this project file to mess around with, it's available from £5 on my Patreon with loads of other sick rewards. Big sample pack for free, exclusive tunes each month, and many more, so be sure to hit that link in the description below. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe as well. Let me know what you thought of this, let me know what kind of styles you want me to show you how to make, and I'll see you in the next episode. Over and out.